Well, attorneys continue to argue over several motions made in the Jackson Bribery Case, and those arguments continue to be made under seal. The federal government filed 23 responses to motions filed by the defendants: Hinds County District Attorney Jody Owens, former Mayor Chokwe Lumumba, and former City Councilman Aaron Banks. 9 responses were filed in response to Owens, 8 by Lumumba, and 6 by Banks. Some of those include motions to sever the case. Another was made in a request to expand the jury pool or transfer the case to another court within Mississippi's Southern District.